I have already seen one short about one person reacting to what the guy in the video is about to say. And it's really, really stupid. So we have to watch this. Otherwise, I mean, it's IGN. Of course it's stupid, right?
Before Palworld's early access debut in 2024, I remember eagerly wanting to review the completely unhinged-looking Pokemon with Guns game, mostly as a joke. Hilariously, the joke was on me when it not only became one of the biggest games of the year, but also one of my all-time favorite survival games.
Okay, now I'm surprised. I'm actually surprised that he would say something like that. And I have to I have to admit, I don't believe him that this is one of his favorite games, because he's a games journalist. And yes, being a games journalist automatically makes me not believe you at this point. It's not like back in the day, in the 90s and early 2000s, you know, before the internet, where games journalists were writing for magazines. You would read what they write and you're like, okay, yeah, makes sense. Not like these days. And the thing is, people back then that were games journalists actually liked video games. That's why, for example, you had people that were specializing on games that others don't want to touch, you know. Not everyone is into games like oh jeez, number one, Civilization, or stuff like I don't know, Industry Giant. I have no idea if that's the name in English. In German it was Industriegigant, which literally translates to Industry Giant, where you build up a company that produces and sells stuff, and you can even have resources gathering, you know, setting up companies that log wood and, you know, produce stuff.
2 years later, with more than 160 hours spent in its 1.0 update, catching colorful pals and battling...
Okay, 160 hours? Okay, I was wrong. He does like the game. 160 hours is very obvious he likes the game. Because a normal games journalist wouldn't spend that much money in a game to just review it.
Massive endgame bosses, I'm happy to report that it's improved in almost all of the ways I hoped it would. The worst of the technical rough edges have been smoothed over, progression has been smartly streamlined, and loads of
Okay, so I was the entire time saying that, yeah, this game isn't for me. This looks nice. This looks nice. Now, to be fair, I don't like the monster design, because it's like Pokemon, and I'm not into Pokemon at all. I watched somewhat of the anime when in the 90s and the early 2000s, and that's it. That's literally it. And I only watched it because there was nothing else on TV that was more interesting.
Bits and bobbles have been added. There are still plenty of parts that feel like they never got the attention they deserved during early access. Most areas are largely empty, settlements can feel downright lifeless, and base building is still fairly janky on its best day. But on the whole, Palworld is more compelling than it's ever been.
This looks cool. She looks cool. She looks cool. And wanna get really critical, want me to say really controversial things. Designs like that in games are great, but if you see a woman dressed like that and having hair like that, never even talk to her. She's crazy. There, said it.
And something I'd highly recommend for those with a taste for both creature collectors and tree-punching survival games alike. If you've never played Palworld before, there's very little I can say to prepare you for this completely bizarre adventure. You'll recruit a roster of colorful critters who make Nintendo's legal team furious and use them to perform unpaid labor in your work camps as you explore an increasingly dangerous world filled with gun-toting maniacs. This mix of
AKA they are your slaves, which is kind of even wrong because slaves got paid just a lot less than non-slaves for the majority of human civilization. For example, in ancient Egypt, when the pharaoh had slaves, and he had a lot of slaves, they weren't directly, under his control. They were just they just paid more taxes. They were basically free, but not really free. They, oh, you are a farmer and you have to pay more taxes than others. I think they had to pay 20% taxes, which is very less than people nowadays have to pay, But they were the slaves and not we. Oh. Yeah.
creature collecting, open world exploration, RPG adjacent leveling and questing, and survival mechanics that have you building up a base to store your pals and conquer the wilds probably shouldn't work. But it really does. And
Wait,
if you
what? I have to hear that again. Maybe I zoned out, but what the hell was he saying?
Creature collecting, open world exploration, RPG adjacent leveling and questing, and survival mechanics that have you building up a base to store your pals and conquer the wilds probably shouldn't work. But
why would you think that? What in that combination would tell you that, oh, that shouldn't work? Why? Where does that come from? Why would that not work if it's just made well? Made well. Jeez. I'm sorry for my speak. Me speak bad today. Why would that not work? Why? If you build the things and they work together well, why wouldn't that work in the game? Why? I mean, that's not the first time. Right? You had that in other games. At least similar. So why wouldn't it work? And no, I don't remember any games. But yeah, why wouldn't it? Why would you say something like that? It doesn't even make sense.
it really does. And if you did play Palworld during early access, know that the 1.0 update fleshes out this world and the kinds of activities you tackle within it. So this over-the-top adventure now feels a lot more complete than the proof of concept version from 2 years ago.
What I would expect from a game developer that works on a game. Duh. Is it really... Why would you be surprised? I mean, I would only be surprised if that would happen with Bethesda. Because they can't do anything, because they're so shit. Man, Bethesda, what a joke. What a joke of a company. And by the way, I don't really like, the menu. It looks like literally every other game. Why can't
out
you...
this world and the kinds of activities you tackle within it.
This looks so cookie cutter. There's nothing to it. Nothing. There's no art style to it, which I really think that's not good. I mean, they can change that. I bet there are mods for that. But yeah. I don't like that. I mean, it's very practical, but it's not, it doesn't look nice. There's no aesthetics to it.
So this over-the-top adventure now feels a lot more complete than the proof of concept version from 2 years ago. You might assume Palworld is just a straight Pokemon ripoff at a glance, but it actually has more in common with the likes of Valheim or Grounded. After inexplicably finding
which at this point I think everyone knows, because the game has been talked about so much in the past 2 years. It's very different to Pokemon Well, enough that Nintendo can shut them down. No, Nintendo, what a joke of a company. Yes, just like Bethesda.
Yourself dropped practically naked into a world filled with magical creatures called pals, you'll have to build up a base and craft gear before you starve to death or freeze out in the cold, then level your way through an irresistible upgrade tree that unlocks better equipment and amenities. That climb makes
like every other game in existence. The thing is, they, at least to me, it seems like they didn't invented anything, anything new. They just took things that existed and put them together to make something really good. Which is what back in the day Blizzard did. But they don't anymore because now all people that work there are incompetent.
It's extremely easy to lose a dozen hours without noticing, as my friends and I found ourselves doing numerous times. You'll go from swinging a club like a caveman, to crafting leather clothes and hunting with a bow, to building literal guns.
You mean just like cavemen?
And ammo. Compared to your humble start, you'll be almost unrecognizable by the endgame, sporting sci-fi armor that looks like something out of Tron, and firing laser cannons at enemies from atop the back of a giant dragon.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, I do wish that the polls would look different because I don't like the art style, but still, this is nice.
Palworld's twist on the familiar survival formula is how it cleverly blends in components of a creature collector, as you'll find yourself wholly unable to survive in these harsh lands without the invaluable assistance of the critters who occupy it. By capturing pals and putting them to work, either at your side as battle companions or at your base where they use their specific powers to perform manual labor, you quickly raise up a legion of workhorses that allow you to turn your barren campsite into an epicenter of industry. For example, a plant-based pal named Gamos can use its green-thumbed ability to plant crops, while the water-based Pengalet waters them, and the sharp-clawed Kativa harvests the produce and stores it in a nearby chest. That automation is incredibly well thought out and works surprisingly well, even if your dumb pals can be a bit imprecise at times, dropping valuable materials on the floor when it's time for bed, or walking as slowly as possible to come assist you, only to turn around when they suddenly realize they're hungry instead. So it's not as awe-inspiringly smooth as something like Satisfactory, but what it lacks in efficiency, it makes up.
Well, yeah, in Satisfactory you don't capture, you don't enslave, the natives and have them work. It's all machines, so of course this is different. Of course it is.
For in silliness and charm. The more creatures you collect, the more things you can automate at your base. But the harder you push those poor creatures, the faster their sanity will drop until they eventually crash out and refuse to work for you. Then again, if you ever want to make an example of a slacker, you can straight up butcher your pals for parts, squeezing the last drop of useful resources out of them in the process.
Which is awesome. The first time I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is good. This is good. It was even kind of shocking to me, right? With my over 40 years, but this is nice. This is really cool.
Like I said, this is a super weird game, and I mean that as a compliment. That said, while growing your base is a ton of fun, the actual act of building it has plenty of room to improve. It's ridiculous that Palworld still lacks the ability to move items around or snap them into alignment.
Really? Oh yeah, that's stupid. Why? Why is that a thing? That has to be fixed. But maybe, from when is it? 12 days ago? Maybe there was a fix with an update, I don't know.
So you have to completely dismantle and rebuild objects in your base if you want to move them somewhere else, or just don't like the angle they're at. The rules for structural integrity are also pretty opaque, Sometimes you'll be told a structure lacks support despite placing down a foundation and pillars for it, and on at least one occasion, I made a minor slip-up by deleting the wrong piece of wall and caused my entire base to disintegrate in front of my eyes, costing me hours of progress.
That sucks, but that also can just happen. Oh, is that exactly this? Mighty? Yeah.
I seem to complain about building limitations in practically every survival game I review, so this is par for the course in a way, but it's still aggravatingly cumbersome
At least he knows.
at times. When you're not putting pals to work at your base and evolving your headquarters from a wooden shack to a high-tech factory, you'll be...
This looks great. This looks nice. Now, to be fair, the overall graphic looks like, it reminds me of games from 10 to 15 years ago.
From a wooden shack to a high-tech factory, you'll be venturing out into the world to capture new...
Yeah, this kind of looks like a PS2 game. When I look at this, I think of PS2 games. No, maybe PS3, GameCube, yeah. So that level.
Pals, brave increasingly dangerous regions, and hunt for loot as you contend with psychotic human factions who often attack you on sight. Instead of just
There are human factions, that's good. Good to know.
letting your party do all the fighting for you, you're able to fire pistols and stab spears into hostile pals and human NPCs alike, while your team blasts them with fireballs. It's surprisingly fun to dodge magical blasts.
That does sound fun. That does sound fun. It really does.
And then grab one of your fire-based pals to use as a living flamethrower, especially
cool.
when your friends are doing the same alongside you in co-op. It's also a fair
If you have friends.
bit more challenging than you might think, as hostiles, especially bosses, pack a serious punch, which gives you yet another reason to be excited about the new shield or piece of armor you've been saving all of your crafting material up for. The storyline that accompanies your climb from naked barbarian with a stick to industrial sweatshop proprietor with godlike power adds some appreciated context to what you're doing. You gotta defeat the most powerful pal tamers in each region, then battle a vague, unspeakable evil within the center of the world tree.
But why? Why would I care? Why would I care?
Sadly, this setup is mostly just used as set dressing, a stream of generic and entirely forgettable characters who direct you toward your next quest or ask you to go tick off some errand on a checklist. It's truly the bare minimum needed to string a quest line together, giving you amusing tasks to complete, but
Yeah, this looks so... How dare I say it? This looks so cheap. This looks so cheap. I've seen games almost 20 years ago that looked like that. And that's Unreal Engine 5. Which is funny. Which is really, really funny.
never actually making you feel like a part of the world. Unless you bring some friends along for the ride, you're in for a pretty isolating adventure. It certainly doesn't help that Palworld has a tendency...
Wait, can I right, I remember, you can enslave the people too.
to feel fairly barren while exploring. The handful of NPC villages you'll find are little more than small camps with a few samey merchants and quest givers hanging around, and you only really have cause to visit them either during specific quests.
Long-eared headband schematic. Can I enslave the pink black-haired, the pink and black-haired chick from earlier and put the bunny ears on her? Because that would be something I would do.
Or to buy supplies before rushing back out. The absolutely massive wild areas suffer from this same issue. Although they are always filled with pals to catch, eggs and treasure chests to hunt, and materials to collect, they otherwise feel like entirely unsettled landscapes. You'll only rarely find NPC pal tamers exploring the islands, aside from the generic enemy camps where poachers shoot at you for no discernible reason. It's especially weird
Why would they not shoot at you? You're approaching on their camp where they do illegal stuff. Of course they would shoot you. Of course. Why would that not make sense? People.
Here that some vast islands exist without any clear purpose, covered with low-level pals, but no real reason to explore them aside from filling out your map, which can make that process a bit of a slog at times.
Yeah.
But while the story and exploration can't carry Palworld on their own, the actual action and the progression systems that drive it more than pull their weight to make up for that.
Well, yeah, because the story doesn't exist to be actually something big or fancy or even relevant. It's just there to connect things. The gameplay is the actual selling point of the game, which it should be. It's a game. I know that, with all the AAA games there, that's literally not the case. But with good games, it is. And yes, I just basically said that AAA games aren't good games. And I stand to that. Absolutely.
This is a huge campaign that took me over 150 hours to complete, with plenty more left to do. And that marathon is paced brilliantly. It gets you into the action fast and points you toward clear objectives that push you out of your base.
Why had I, when you said the word marathon, think about the game? And it immediately made my mood go down because, just
to explore, fight bosses, and capture pals. You're given loads of XP and access to better equipment by simply following the path in front of you, and I always felt like I was just a tiny bit ahead of the difficulty curve without needing to do much grinding. Occasionally I'd run into a high-level boss that'd kick my teeth in, forcing me to regroup and work on my build, but this was a pretty rare occurrence, and one I was never annoyed by, since crafting new items to overcome those hurdles was usually a fun challenge.
So, what he's saying is that the game is well designed. Because that's a well-designed game. You are slightly ahead of the difficulty curve. AKA what you want if you aren't completely stupid. If you aren't completely stupid, you will be slightly ahead of the curve. And when you have bosses, at the first time, they might bash your head. And okay, yeah, that's good design. That's what you want.
And although much of the map is more empty than I'd like it to be, certain areas at least have interesting barriers you'll need to.
This area totally reminds me of Searing Gorge in World of Warcraft. And that's a good thing. That's an actual good thing. I like this area. Just because of that.
Overcome before continuing your march ever outward. For example, one region is dominated by a giant volcano, so you'll need to craft heat-resistant items to avoid catching on fire and slowly dying to the heat. Another area is suspended high in the air, accessible only by those who know the secret method to reach it.
AKA flying. Flying, the secret technique that only birds know. And bees. And butterflies. And wasps. And bumblebees.
There's some cool boss fights to gate your progress too, like one against a giant whale that throws massive tidal waves at you, requiring you to have a flying pal at your side that can outrace the insanely tall walls of deadly water. That said, the number of memorable boss fights like this is dwarfed by the amount of forgettable ones, as
she is nicely designed.
Most are just a matter of you and your pals slapping around some oversized creature until it dies. Thankfully, there is at least a good amount of choice for which pals do that slapping. You can battle alongside any pals you want in order to power them up, and various consumables will upgrade them even further. It's definitely a lot easier if you abandon your favorite pals for ones that are naturally stronger, like the options that appear later on, legendaries and whatnot. But as someone who prefers to reject the meta and use whichever creatures I connect most with, I was impressed by how many ways Palworld provides for you to raise lesser pals up to be viable even through to the endgame.
I wonder how many furries play this game. I wouldn't be surprised if all the furries play this game. all of them. Every single furry in the world plays this game. That would not surprise me the slightest. At all.
For example, I caught a fiery Blazemutt early on in my adventure that I bonded with immediately and wouldn't have parted with unless faced with no other option. As I leveled up, I kept finding new ways to improve my buddy's stats, give him more powerful attacks.
That's actually something I would hope the game has, leveling up your pals. That's great. I love systems like that.
And buff him in various other ways, such as grinding up duplicate copies of the PAL to increase his star rating, and increasing our bond just by spending time with him in my party, both of which increased his stats.
Nice.
He even got strong enough that I was able to bring him into battle against post-game bosses without issue. It's
him riding the Paul along here gave me such World of Warcraft vibes. And I don't know if I like that or not. I don't know if I like that, because there's a reason I stopped playing the game. I even have finally uninstalled it, which is I think the 4th or 5th time in my life. And I have zero plans of going back. Zero. Fuck that game. But this looks like fun.
pretty awesome that this is an option, because a pet peeve of mine and other creature collectors is when everyone's teams look identical by the end, as personal flair gives way to the inescapable gravity of raw stats. You'll need to develop those pals quite a bit too, because Palworld's endgame kicks the difficulty up to 11. It has some seriously challenging versions of each of the existing boss fights, plus raid encounters where you'll fight alongside practically every pal you've ever captured to take down a massive deadly monster.
Cool.
To aid you in the effort, there's quite a bit of equipment to unlock and rare resources to grind for, even beyond the main story. And the ancient relic recycler that spits out high-end resources and equipment when you claim victory against pals in the endgame region is a particularly nice touch for speeding up the grind as you get even deeper. Some of that grind...
That's actually cool. Oh no. That's the IGN review of Palworld. Is going to make me want to play the game. Even Asmongold didn't make me want to play the game. But IGN does? How disgusting. How disgusting. I'm ashamed of myself.
Can be a bit of a pain, like hunting for randomly dropped duplicates of a schematic so you can craft a better version needed to take down a raid boss, which becomes monotonous fairly quickly. But on the whole, there's quite a bit to chase if you're looking to extend your time past the
So basically what he said here, World of Warcraft has bad game design. Because you have to kill raid bosses over and over again. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh. Man, fuck World of Warcraft. Fuck that game.
credits, and I happily lost way too much time doing just that.
The verdict.
Palworld.
Almost 10 minutes left, then the important part happens. Where he is talking about, oh, they got him sued.
Cleverly blends an amusing creature collecting adventure with a traditional survival game to create something that's bizarre, disturbing, and incredibly bingeable. Forcing pals to work in your growing empire of industrialization as you conquer a hostile world in search of greater power is one of those endlessly satisfying loops you can lose some serious time to, especially when accompanied by friends. The story isn't worth following, some regions can feel pretty barren, and the base building mechanics could have used more time in early access, but those shortcomings are little more than a footnote when measured against the consistently enjoyable adventure.
So the story of this game is bad. It's irrelevant. So is the story of the last Assassin's Creed, but you all loved it because Black Dude. Make sense of that crap.
Around them. Palworld had me meticulously hunting every pal in my Palpedia, excitedly grinding for better gear to take on the next challenging region or boss, and self-reflecting on whether or not I was a bad person as I turned innocent animals into beasts of burden, adding them to my army of unpaid interns. The answer is probably yes, but that doesn't mean I want to stop anytime soon.
It's an 8. Listening to what he said, I would have given it an 8 too. Maybe even a 9, because the negative things are really not that big of a deal. But I also expected it to be lower than that. Like a 6. Because it's Palworld. Just for that. Because I know how games journalists are. We all know, right?
Soon.
Reviews director Tom Marks here to talk to Travis Northup a little bit more about his review of Palworld, his second.
I know this face. I know this guy's a cunt. But I don't remember why. It was definitely something stupid. Which is not surprising. Look at how smug he is.
Third review of Palworld, because you reviewed the original early access launch and then also had a separate review for the Xbox version, which was really buggy at launch. And then you've also done a ton of other survival games for us, like Dune Awakening, Aloft, Satisfactory, Lord of the Rings Return to Moria. But there's a second half.
Wait, there's a Lord of the Rings Return to Moria? Crap, I might have to look that up. Because I love the Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's work. It's so good. And if that game is nice, I wouldn't mind playing a game that's, you know, completely not lore accurate, but fun and set in the world. I completely don't mind like things like that.
Half of this game that I wanted to ask you about, which is Pokemon. Let's talk about the gameplay comparison specifically with Palworld and Pokemon, because these games get compared a lot, right? Not inappropriately. There's literal lawsuits going on, or were going on, about the similarities that they shared, both mechanically and in some of their designs, which we should note, we didn't mention this in the review, but the 1.0 update changed some of their designs so they were a little less Pokemon-like, or at least.
Sure, and as far as I know, all the lawsuits were like, yeah, no. Just no. Just no. They literally said, Nintendo, shut your mouth, go in the corner and cry. That literally what happened there.
At least that's what it seemed like. But I guess, how similar are they in terms, like, do you think that is, it's mostly a skin deep comparison in terms of like monster collecting and the designs, or do you think that like a Pokemon fan who's not really into survival games or just doesn't play survival games could come into this and enjoy it for similar-ish reasons?
Of course they could. What kind of question is that? It's fundamentally, if you're a Pokemon fan and you don't want to play this game, you Palworld, you're stupid. I mean, am I the only one that has... we all have seen Pokemon game. Pokemon. It has to be the newest one. Pokemon needs to finally wake up. Pokemon game. I have no idea how how the new game is called. I only know that there's one. New Pokemon game. No. Is it this? Pokemon Wins and Pokemon Waves. I think this might be it. We go with Nintendo UK. It should be a trailer. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, not actual gameplay footage, yeah, I know. I've seen gameplay footage. Where's the gameplay footage? This looks nice, right? This looks kind of nice. Looks nice. Looks neat, yeah. This is gameplay. Give me gameplay, you stupid. Because I know it wasn't this one 9 months ago. For fuck's sake. Is it this one? No, it's not this one. That was a game from last year. Where is it? This month. Why the hell can't I find things? Exclusive gameplay review. I can't find it. And yes, I wanted to show something really bad. I did, but I can't find it. I can't find it. It looked horrible. Actually horrible. I think I saw a short of Asmongold, you know, basically comparing Palworld and new Pokemon game, and the Pokemon game looked like trash. It looked literally like trash. Like, it looked worse than a PS2 game. And it's not even close.
I do not think that is true. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is kind of a skin deep comparison, because it is funny, and it's like, it is the elephant in the room of like, look how much they're just cribbing off of the Pokemon stuff. I do think it's a skin deep comparison because, you know,
I don't. Oh, perfect. They show gameplay from Pokemon, right? This is Pokemon. Or is this Palworld? I can't even tell.
Pokemon has always been like a turn-based RPG, and it has the kind of training, battling in the center. And
oh yeah, this is the game from last year. Look at how ugly this is.
It is that genre, it like first and foremost. And I would say the Palworld is first and foremost a survival game that has creature collection as sort of the vehicle through which you're moving through that survival game kind of formula. But it has a lot more in common with Valheim than it has with Pokemon on a moment-to-moment gameplay framing, right?
And I would say that's a good thing. I would say that's a good thing, because Pokemon games, they aren't as good as they used to be.
If you are somebody who just likes Pokemon and you really hate those grindy tree puncher games where you're you know, having to craft your clothes, you're not going to like this game, because that's 90% of what you're doing. And it's actually kind of funny, because sometimes I will forget that it is like a Pokemon-like game, because I'm just focused on, oh, I got to craft that new gun, and then I'm going to go get on my pal and fly over there to go, you know, raid this area and stuff. And you're kind of just so caught up in it that...
Well, yeah, because it's not a Pokemon game. It's not. It has aspects of it, but that's it. That's like saying, oh, Elden Ring is an RPG, But it's if you're only into RPGs and you don't like action combat, then oh yeah, that game isn't for you. Well, duh.
You know, you get into a like gym battle. They're not really gym battles, but you're like fighting these trainers at a tower, and you're like, oh right, like it's also just a weird Pokemon clone. But yeah, it is a kind of
a clone. This is not a clone of Pokemon. It's an. Didn't he say that Pokemon is a turn-based fighting game? Well, Palworld isn't. So it's not a clone. If the creatures would look completely different, there wouldn't be, oh yeah, this is just like Pokemon. It's so stupid.
a skin deep comparison, because I think to say that is really overlooking most of what Palworld is. It mashes a whole bunch of things together that shouldn't work, and they do. And so I think if you...
Why should they not work? Why? And these people just say things to make them sound smart. Which is really annoying, because they aren't smart.
You're not interested in, especially the survival game part of that, you're probably not going to care that there are Pokemon-like creatures in it.
So with this being more of a survival game, the other part of that formula, or a very common part of that formula, is the co-op, is getting a party and building a base together and going out and fighting together, or splitting up and each doing your own tasks to save time as you progress. Does this feel like a game that really needs to be played in co-op, or could you just sort of jump into it solo and...
Of course you can just jump into it solo. Of course you can. It's a game. How are games journalists so... I mean, you literally did that. He literally did that. We only have seen him play the game alone. So...
and enjoy that. Obviously, it's a very large game. It'll go quicker co-op, but does that feel essential? Does it feel imbalanced solo?
Yeah, I...
Why are you even asking the question to him? You played the game. You know. Oh, right, you're asking him because this conversation needs to happen.
I go back and forth on this because I am somebody who enjoys playing survival games alone oftentimes, but like then you have a friend or two join you and you forget how much better playing with friends is. And so it's very hard for me to remove those two, because even though I did play this game alone maybe half the time, like I was only setting things up and getting excited for when my friends eventually logged on, and then we would, you know, be playing together. And so it's hard to separate the two. And I will say this game in particular, like some survival games benefit by the idea that you feel like you're in a strange and isolated world and there's no one else around and you're just like a lone person surviving in the wilderness. Palworld does not benefit from that aesthetic at all. When the world is empty, it feels really bad, like a unfinished game, because it's a world that is kind of similar to a...
So, just like Starfield. I wonder if they said the same about Starfield. I think not, because, oh, it's Bethesda.
Pokemon world where you expect to see like other pal tamers running around and stuff, and the game doesn't have that in there, right? And so if you don't have your friends, it feels more isolating, I think. So as a rule, I don't think it's necessary to play survival. I don't think survival games are always better in co-op, but I think Palworld definitely is. And so yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend it to people playing solo, because it's so much more fun along friends for a wide variety of reasons.
That's dumb. Why would you say something stupid like that? Oh, I wouldn't recommend it for people that want to play it solo. Why not? If the game is good and fun, then just play it. It doesn't matter if you're solo or not. What the... Now, you can say, oh yeah, it's definitely way more fun if you aren't alone. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean that you can't have fun playing it alone. Especially if the game works in a way that you can play it alone. What the hell? See, and it's things like that where you can't trust these people. They just say things to sound smart.
Whether it's, you know, oh, I don't have room for this pal in my lineup, but you do, so bring that one, and then we'll kind of combine together. And then also there's like big raid activities that can happen that doing it alone puts you at a massive disadvantage. It's not impossible, but like it's just easier if you do it with friends. And then stuff like that.
See, you just said it. Oh my god, it's so pathetic.
Where it'll have like, there's like items you can craft that are like guild items, where anybody in your guild can access the resources that are in your guild chest, or any pals that are in the guild pal box.
See, that's nice. That's something nice, right?
And so all of those items have almost no use if you're playing completely solo. And so it's just a game that very much leans into multiplayer and feels like it is best suited for multiplayer. So yeah, if you're on the fence about whether or not to play it alone, I would just say, you know, if you can play it with friends, you definitely should.
Well, Travis, thank you so much for chatting with us a little bit more about your review and your thoughts on the genre.
Man, these people. These people. That was a whole load of nothing. Why was he even here? He could have said all these things by himself in his review. That, oh yeah, the game plays to its maximum potential when you're playing with friends, with other people. Then it's even more fun. There. This entire section didn't need to exist.
Genre and all that jazz. If you want more co-op-y games, check out our reviews of Splatoon Raiders and The Mound Omen of Cthulhu recently. And
wait,
for everything else,
Splatoon Raiders?
stick with IGN.
You mean like in Arc Raiders?
How long has baby been gone?
That's crazy. That's crazy. Splatoon Raiders. Yeah, I bet it's... I wouldn't be surprised if they are kind of like, you know, oh yeah, this is an extraction shooter now. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the thing. I wouldn't be. This is so dumb. Well, that was the IGN review of Palworld. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Only at the very end, at the interview with the other guy, it became stupid. Because they were just, well, the one guy at least was just saying things because he believes it makes him sound smart. That's at least what I think was going on. Well, and now I actually want to play the game. Great, perfect, yeah. No, I don't want to. But we are going to play not this one. This one right now after this video. And yes, after this video. Which means we are at the end of this video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you want to see more like this, subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.